Good morning, friends. Happy Saturday. Today is day 12 of our study, and we are studying Luke 7, verses 1 through 23 today. And our sweet treat is that Jesus is compassionate. We start chapter 7 with Jesus returning to Capernaum, which apparently is where he was living at the time. When he gets there, he learns that there's a centurion there, or a Roman soldier, who has a servant. And this soldier loves his servant so dearly that the servant is deathly ill. So the centurion finds some Jewish elders and he begs them to please go find Jesus and ask Jesus to come heal his servant. He doesn't think he's worthy enough to go to Jesus himself, and he doesn't even know if Jesus would come when he found out it was a Roman soldier who was asking for this help. Sadly, there's still people today in our world who feel like they can't come to Jesus directly either. They ask others to pray for them, including their priest or their pastor or a Christian friend. The good news is that none of us are worthy, and yet Jesus says we can come to him anytime, anyway. The Jewish elders vouch for the centurion, telling Jesus that he's a good man who has done really good things, and so Jesus agrees to go ahead and heal this man. Before he reaches the centurion's house, his friends come running out, though, saying that their friend, the centurion, knows that Jesus is super busy. The centurion knows that Jesus, being a Jew and a rabbi, a very highly esteemed priest, probably not want to be caught dead inside of this Roman soldier's house. He says he knows of Jesus' authority, and he knows that if he just speaks the words, he truly believes that his servant will be healed. The centurion goes on to say that he too is an authority figure, used to having people do exactly what he says. And so he truly believes that with Jesus' authority, he can command this illness out of his servant. Jesus is completely blown away, and actually it says he marvels at the centurion's faith and understanding of his authority. He's a man that's not even a Jew, and he gets it more than anyone else has understood it yet. Moving into verse 11, we see Jesus moving on to a town called Nain. His disciples are with him, and a big crowd is following him as always. As he approaches the city gates, this time Jesus sees a crowd coming out, carrying a man in an open coffin. Now, the man has passed away, and his mother is a widow. He is this woman's only son. Jesus' heart is just broken for this woman. He has deep compassion for her, and he decides he wants to help. Without even being asked, Jesus reaches up and touches the coffin, and he says, and the man sits up and starts, Jesus reaches out to the coffin and tells the young man, "Arise." And then the young man sits up and he starts talking to people. It's easy to love Jesus when we see his compassion, but it's harder sometimes for us to trust him when he doesn't give us what we ask of him. Meanwhile, John the Baptist is still in prison, and he receives word that Jesus has been doing all these amazing, miraculous healings and raising people from the dead. He gathers a few of his followers and sends them with a message to Jesus. He asks just one simple question: are you the coming one, or is someone else coming? Poor John. Imagine his confusion. His entire existence is for the sole purpose of being the forerunner of Jesus. He's given his whole life to this work, including being imprisoned for speaking radically about Herod's ungodly behavior. He must have been sitting there in prison just waiting for the Messiah to break him free from his jail cell. Like many other Jews, John was expecting a Messiah who would politically deliver Israel. They were waiting for a king to rise up and take his rightful place on the throne. They were expecting a king with a mighty army that would crush the darkness and judge the unrighteous. Instead, Jesus was quietly going from town to town, healing the sick and raising the dead, while poor John continued to sit in prison. Understanding John's frustration and confusion, Jesus sends word back to him and says, "Blessed is he who is not offended because of me." Jesus knows that the world is completely scandalized by his behavior, but he wants John to know that there's a blessing for those who choose not to be offended by the surprising mannerisms and behavior of the Messiah. Today's sweet treat is that Jesus truly is compassionate. We see in today's reading that Jesus was compassionate toward the centurion and his servant, toward the widowed woman and her dead son, and he's compassionate towards John, who sits in prison for preaching God's word to the king. God doesn't always give us what we want. We don't always get healed, and we don't always get the job, the promotion, the guy, the house, the car, the grades, or the recognition that we think we deserve. But Jesus promises that there is a blessing for those who are not offended by what Jesus does or doesn't do in our lives. I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. If you have a moment, would you just hit reply on this email and tell me what you think about the way this is going? This is my very first daily video series like this. Tell me what you like and what you don't. I really would appreciate some constructive criticism because I'd like to make some improvements. So please tell me your thoughts, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great Saturday. We'll see you tomorrow.